Thank you, Yvette. That's a very good presentation for the fantastic work, and well done. Thank you for coming in and telling us. Brilliant. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora. Don't worry about him. Okay. We're now moving on to deputations by appointment. We have several deputations today, and we'll start with those speaking to the item 28, the preferred supplier for the organics processing facility. I'll remind our speakers that we can't be hearing further remarks on the interim curbside organics management report, as we have already heard submissions on that topic in November. So, now, Vicky Walker was the first one, but I believe she's can't be here. Now, we'll have a deputation from her, but our Coastal Burwood Linwood Community Board members are going to come and speak to it. Have I got that right? Please? Thank you.
Apologise, I thought we were coming with the board report. So I'm just going to read this letter that we've had from Vicky because she is unwell. It says, hello, please accept my apology for not being able to attend the deputation as I have yet another lung infection. Please read the attached letter from my doctor. And this is a letter from Dr. AJ Vargas at the Morehouse Medical Centre and reads as follows. To whom it may concern, Vicky, who lives closer to the compost plant in Bromley, has had multiple bouts of chest infection, Legionnaire's disease, that's question mark, Legionnaire's disease. She was given another week-long course of antibiotics for the same. I'm very concerned about the adverse effects of compost on Vicky's health and the need to prescribe multiple courses of antibiotics, which puts her at an increased risk of developing resistance to commonly used antibiotics. Her letter continues. Like I've said for some time, my health has declined over the past year, and my doctor believes the adverse effects of this compost is detrimental to my health, not unlike others that are infected in my community. What adds salt to the wound is that I'm a ratepayer and paying for air quality in my rates, but it seems still that the niceties, the arena, sports stadium, cycle lanes, are all more important than our air quality and wastewater system. There was a scathing review on how we were all treated with the wastewater plant disaster, which consequently is still ongoing, and we still have an interim system, and it still emits stenchy smell on occasions, polluting our air. What would an independent review on the OPP expose? Not enough transparency. We have battled on meeting after meeting with trying to get solutions. Lip service, we have been served. When you make your decision regarding the permanent replacement of the OPP, you need to put the needs of the people forced to breathe in the dirty air of 14 years first. The rest of Christchurch don't suffer every day with not having air quality in their homes and properties. They can hang their washing out, garden, walk in their community, have family over for barbecues, and have normal lives. We don't. To heck with your greenhouse emissions. You can make methane and sell it back to the grid for energy. You can sell compost to recoup whatever costs you need to recoup. You and your staff are paid by our rates to run the city. What you are doing is running the working class on the east side of the city into the ground. Not to forget, we have had earthquakes, and our side of the city was hit the hardest, and we are still recovering. This added stress is just not okay. I love my community. I love my home and family. I don't want to move. I feel I am being pushed out of my community. Your lack of action to correct your mistakes is making it so hard to live here. I exist here and I'm not enjoying living in my home and community. It is causing me distress. To think about upheaving my home I've lived in for 25 years, my businesses and my family is extremely stressful. Right the wrongs you have committed for so long with this plant. Send it off to Cape Valley until you have a proper replacement away from any houses. Make the existing area a lovely green area which we can enjoy, and let us be proud of our city and its elected mayor and councillors. Do the right thing. We deserve better here in the east, and do it now. Show us respect and close the OPP plant. Do the right thing. Do it now. close it now. Sincerely, Vicky Walker.
Thank you, Jackie, on behalf of Vicky. There's actually time for a question, if someone wants. I think we've certainly all got the gist of it. So,
Yep, just that's great.
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so now we have Harrison McElvoy.
Are we able to get the letter circulated? Are you able to email it around?
What?
It has? Right, great.
Okay. We now have Harrison McEvoy. I'd like to welcome Harrison to the table, who is here to speak about item 19. Welcome.
Morning, everyone. Sorry I'm a little bit croaky today, but that's all right. I'm here talking about item 19, which is obviously the PC14 IHP. And it's the opinion of myself and a number who I talked to that this process should absolutely continue. There are multiple reasons for this. The IHP is obviously something that we all decided on, you all decided on in March this year when we all came in and we all had our say, and we decided that the IHP was the right process to go through, and we've since spent over $2 million undertaking that process, and it's now almost complete. Simply from a logical standpoint, it doesn't seem fair to cut that short now. And I'd say that there's probably only two reasons that that's the case, is that the voices of people in the city are being heard. And for some people, that might be scary when it comes down to making plan changes, is that that's not predictable. But it is fair. It's absolutely the right thing to do, and it absolutely should be the way that this council operates when dealing with such a once-in-a-generational opportunity to reform the way we look at our city and the way we want our city to grow. That's the way that it should be. We have it's a form of direct democracy, which is something that this council has struggled with in past, but is getting better with, and it's something that we absolutely should keep. It's an opportunity for the people of this city to have had their say and be heard when it comes to the way they want their communities to look, when it comes to the way they want infrastructure to interact with housing, and where they want to see the density that the city will need. We know that PC14 ties into PC13 and PC12, into adaptation and heritage, and that's something that's not going to go away in the future. It's going to get worse. It's going to be a big question that's going to be asked around this table in the future, is what do we do when we have to move thousands of people out of the east side of our city with sea level rises as they're currently predicted? Where do they go? How do we accommodate them? Where do we find that housing stock? These are all questions that PC14 IHP seeks to answer, right? And it makes no sense to me to take away that authority that's been given by this around this table to the people of Christchurch to make that decision. It's not also, I think there's a lot of contestation that because the government in Wellington has changed, we have to change how we do PC14. Even with the MDRS gone, the MDRS were a bottom line for housing development. There was no, that was the bottom line set by the government. If the bottom line goes lower, we don't have to go to meet it. We can stay there. It doesn't cap us from building more housing or seeking to develop in a different way. It's a minimum, not a maximum. We shouldn't be aiming for the minimum level of housing in our city. There's no reason for that. We know we're going to face an influx of people. We know our city is growing, and we're one of the fastest growing and consented areas in the country. Canterbury alone consented more houses in the last financial year than the entire lower North Island. It's an insane amount of housing when you think about it, and it's an insane proposition to say that we should continue the way we do when we know it doesn't work. It's a matter of urgency. It's something that we can't afford to put off, especially with the implications it has for the way we build housing. And even if this process was triggered by the MDRS and the reform to the RMA, it's a problem that's existed for a long time in New Zealand with housing stock, at least the last 20 years. I know, for example, at the moment there are containers being lettered on, I think it was Fitzgerald Ave, for $220 a week. That's supposed to be somebody's house for $220 a week. Now, while PC14 doesn't guarantee a solution to this, it does guarantee us the tools to make this work. So I seriously urge you that even if you believe in the sunk cost, you don't believe in the sunk cost fallacy and everything goes with that, this is an opportunity for the people of this city to have had their say, to be heard, and to have it come to this table when it comes to one of the biggest issues that the city has faced in decades. And so I really do believe that, not just on behalf of myself, but on behalf of multiple other people I speak with, that this should go ahead. It's a very important issue.
Thank you very much. That's more or less the time up. Thank you for coming in and talking. Thank you. Okay, so now we will hear from Tony Simons on behalf of the Combined Residents Associations of Christchurch, who will also speak on item 19.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to talk. I'll try and keep it brief. I don't intend to debate the merits or otherwise of PC14. This is an issue of whether it's right to pause or not whether or not PC14 is a good idea or not, but whether we should be pausing. I'm chair of the Riccarton Bush Kilmarnock Residents Association, but I'm also here as a spokesperson for the Combined Residents Group that is made up of more than 20 citizens' associations, and we've consistently been pushing back on this plan change, as you will know. We've even supported a complaint to the Ombudsman over the unfairness of the so-called streamlined process. However, as I say, I'm not here to debate the merits or otherwise of the plan change. I have to say I did wonder very briefly if continuing the hearing might be a good idea, given the amount of money that's already been spent on the process. But I've reflected on that, and I do know the answer, which is it would be simply throwing good money after bad. Rule number 1, when you're lost in the bush and you're not sure where you're heading, stay put until you're rescued. At a time when this council needs to save all the money it can, aimlessly spending another $2.2 million keeping this going with no clear objective in mind would be fiscally irresponsible. We know this process has already caused confusion with the hearings panel and submitters who are grappling with what the NPSUD asks for, what the RMA Amendment Act requires, and the rules in the current city plan. What are the terms of reference now for the panel? Continuing on the current path just creates more confusion, both for submitters who are yet to present and for the panel itself. We know the government is going to make medium density standards optional, and it may even change the national policy statement. That could make PC14 redundant, so any decision to continue with it may require a new consultation. Thirdly, there is a significant cost if this continues. In June this year, the council stated the budget for this entire hearings process was $2.8 million. That was to cover everything: evidence preparation, venue costs, IT costs, and the cost of the independent hearings panel. Now I read last week that $2 million is already spent, and there's a new budget of $4.2 million. That's a 50% increase. I didn't know that until last week. If you force this ridiculously expensive information gathering exercise to continue as it is, we, the ratepayers, are the ones that are paying for it, not the government. You will all remember this. We have a perfectly good city plan already. This city won an international award for effective community engagement with Share an Idea. It helped inform that plan, and our younger citizens engaged with that in huge numbers as well, which is not normally the case. Spending a further $2.2 million on this process when we have no certainty about the benefit is not responsible spending. Please ask Minister Penny Simmons to allow a pause to give everyone a chance to reset. There's nothing to lose, and potentially $2.2 million to gain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Have we got any? Yep, Councillor Templeton.
Thanks so much for that, Tony. I'm just clarifying the position. I know that the residents' associations have expressed concern in the past, but when it comes to the pause, you were talking about your beliefs, and I'm just wondering if it was a mandate from all of those residents' associations that they've met and considered it, and given the mandate, because you were saying that you'd change your mind and things.
If you're referring to requesting a pause,
Yeah.
yes. So all the residents' associations were consulted, and all the residents' associations signed up to the recent complaint that we lodged with the Ombudsman asking for a pause and complaining that the process had been unfair. So all of those in the list were consulted.
That's great, thanks.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, so next we have, I'd like to welcome Mark Duff to the table on behalf of the Greater Hornby Residents Association, also to speak about item 19. Welcome, Mark.
Kura koto, councillors and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning on the proposal to push the pause button on Plan Change 14. It is with mixed emotions we speak on this proposal this morning, as we are delighted to see this, but disappointed it has taken so long, and it's something as a community we have been calling for a long time, for the pause button to be pushed. Thank you for the opportunity to deal with two odours and bad smells this morning. One is obviously the organics plant, while the other is currently what is being proposed for our suburb and the Greater Hornby area with medium and high intensity housing. In many ways, both issues are not in our backyard situations. During this process, we've continually heard from our councillor and others and staff they do not agree a lot with what is being proposed, but it has been forced on them by central government. With the change of government, we have the opportunity to enforce with them that Christchurch is not Auckland and neither is it Wellington. Each city is unique in its own way, and we have our own jigsaw to solve. Our jigsaw is not looking too good at the moment, but I'm confident we can fix it. It is the logical time to press pause and a deputation of our senior councillors and mayor to talk to central government to get what is best for our city and to have more say in shaping what our city is going to look like going forward is needed. I question residents have had their say. After the submissions, there was changes made by staff, and there is a lot of upset people in our ward that they can't now submit on those changes, and hence why we'd like to see the pause. We continually talk about the central city targets not being met and the population not being in our central city, yet we have this here that we're trying to push people out into our suburbs and some limited suburbs at that. Let's work together for some real positive outcomes. Finally, on behalf of GHA, I wanted to wish you all and your families a fantastic and safe Christmas. And to the staff, thank you so much for the way the organisation and staff have worked together this year for some real positive outcomes for the Greater Hornby area. To our local Waipuna Community Board Governance team, Jess, Bailey, Marie, Helen, Nola and Faye, as individuals you're all amazing, and as a team you're unbeatable, and we appreciate all the support and guidance. Andrew, our traffic engineer, we finally bloody got that green turning light on Amy's Road. And we have enjoyed the consistency of having the same traffic engineer for over 6 months. The park staff, we have been dealing with, we've got some great new initiatives in our parks this year and they've been well received by the community. But finally, the team we've been dealing with the most is over the build of the Matatiki Centre. Oh my God, how good you have all been. And we are nearly there. The long-held dream is nearly a reality. Bring on March 2024. Merry Christmas, one and all, and thank you, but please press pause.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. No questions, so thank you very much. Brilliant. Okay, next we have Bob Manthe, who will talk on behalf of the Victoria Neighbourhood Association, also on item 19.
I have 10 copies of my statement.
Yep. Thank you. Fire away, mate.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Bob Montai, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Victoria Neighbourhood Association, a residents group in the Central City. We support the recommendation in the Council Staff Report on PC 14, refer to paragraph 1.1, that the Minister for the Environment is asked to set a new date for resuming the IHP and for extending the planned change completion deadline, thereby placing PC 14 on hold until legislative change occurs. Our reasons are summarized in the letter you have received from VNA spokesperson Jeff Banks, dated the 1st of December, with an attachment from the Combined Residents Associations dated 17th of September to Don Baxendale. We do not, however, support the option in paragraph 4.1 of the council report. Almost every briefing the VNA organized with CCC staff overseeing PC14 and in the council webinars, consultation documents, and many S32 and S42 reports unequivocally stated that, in effect, legislation requires us to intensify to the recommended level, so our hands are tied. Even some of the IHP's questions to submitters were prefaced with a similar statement. If the mandatory requirements are removed, that leaves the city/submitters to put forward ideas on a best for the city basis. To allow the IHP to continue its work when a significant number of submissions were based on the above premise is wasteful and undemocratic. The VNA supports some of the ideas put forth by some submitters, and we hope those ideas will not be lost. However, in light of the pending change to the NPS UD legislation, proceeding is not a reasonable option. If, however, you people decide to proceed with the IHP hearings, all CCC staff, their expert witnesses, and the IHP should be asked to disregard all recommendations that are based on the assumption that the NPSUD requires a specific level of intensification. And then let's see what's left. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Any questions from anyone? Thank you. We've got your story. Thank you very much. Good on you. So next we have David Lynch, who will also be talking about number 19, item 19.
I've got a handout, Mr. Mayor, of my address. That's right. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll send it electronically as well. I suppose I'm going to ask for a glass of water, could I? Would that be? You usually do have water. I don't think you're cutting back, are you?
I've got my man on it.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll get started. I'm here in my capacity today as a Director of Momentous Public Relations, someone that for the last 30 years has taken a fairly active interest in procedural process, particularly around how people are effectively engaged. Thank you. I have previously made written and oral submissions to this Council and to the Parliamentary Select Committee during the 2021-2022 periods in respect to the housing intensification legislation, or as promoted by the former Labor government, a rather confusing reference, Enabling Housing Supply and Other Matters Amendment Bill. That's where the problem first started, I think. During this period, I supported the concerns regarding the government's fast-tracked medium-density housing planning changes, and it also is calling for well-planned, balanced residential intensification where it is needed, such as in the central city, and only after communities have been properly consulted. There can be no question that there is a need for housing intensification here in Christchurch. However, as others have previously stated, one size does not fit all. As previously submitted, the anticipated adverse effects for Christchurch of a centrally imposed and fast-track legislation are far-reaching and long-term. Whilst these effects will be many and varied, what ultimately must be of prime concern to you all will be the consequences in terms of health and well-being, in particular the mental health of Christchurch residents when they're suddenly confronted with some of these proposed intensifications. The loss of sunlight, privacy resulting with non-notified neighbouring developments cannot be said to reflect the principles of good town planning. Neighbours will have no say before their sun and privacy is unexpectedly removed, despite their having factored in sun and privacy and based their retirement and other decisions to buy the home, relying in part on planning rules enshrined in community participation in the resource consenting process. The continuing opposition, as evidenced by Christchurch Residents Group submissions to the Plan Change 14 independent hearing panel as well, has its origins in what would be argued to be the deficient and undemocratic parliamentary and more recently, Council's interpretation of your instruction in respect to the housing intensification process. I would like to fully support the Interim Chief Executive Mary Richardson's recommendation to place the hearing process on hold, asking the Minister for the Environment to set a new date for resuming the hearing and completing the plan to the Change 14. This will enable the Council to place Plan Change 14 on hold until the legislative changes occurs and we actually understand what's going on. As highlighted in the report, the new government intends to make implementing the medium density residential standards optional, and until the Council establishes what exactly these changes are, it makes good sense to take a pragmatic approach. However, the further justification for the hearing is set out under some various legal considerations that I've set out. It would appear there are significant concerns regarding the plan change, public engagement, and its subsequent preparation of the Council reports presented to the hearing panel. If it is proven to be correct, not only has it undermined the democratic process, but potentially has infringed on citizens' rights to participate meaningfully in the decision-making. For example, the absence of pertinent details could impede public scrutiny, and citizens might argue that their ability to contribute informed opinions has been compromised. The lack of transparency and procedural fairness could lead to legal challenges invoking judicial review or a similar mechanism. These concerns, if unaddressed, may compromise the integrity of the decision-making process and the public trust in the planning authority. So what are some of the specific concerns? The lack of transparency regarding the building height increases. The decision recommended retrospectively to increase the heights to 10 stories has raised serious concerns, especially considering it was not disclosed during the public engagement procedure. The lack of transparency raises questions about the fairness of the decision-making process and may have legal implications related to public disclosure and engagement requirements as set out and required by you under the Local Government Act. Unreasonable shift in the vision timeframe. A notable legal concern lies in the abrupt shift of the vision from 30 years to an extended period of 130 years. The deviation from the initially communicated timeframe may be deemed irrational and could potentially violate legal standards governing the consistency and rationality of the planning decision. Failure to include legal relevant information. The Council's failure to include legally relevant information in the written documentation presents a public engagement procedure. I'll read that again. The Council's failure to include legally relevant information in the written documentation presented during the public engagement procedure is a significant legal lapse. The omission of crucial details may compromise the public's ability to make fully informed contributions and could be viewed as a violation of the legal requirements for comprehensive documentation in the public decision-making process. And finally, the absence of the retrospective Section 32 analysis. The respective Section 32 analysis conducted by staff is casting doubt on the plan's implementation aims and objectives. It is a critical legal concern. The absence of this analysis during the public engagement procedure raises questions about the completeness and the legality of the decision-making process, potentially undermining the legitimacy again of the proposed plan. Additionally, addressing these legal concerns is paramount to upholding the principles of transparency, fairness, and the legality in the planning process. These issues must be thoroughly examined and rectified to ensure the integrity of the decision-making framework and maintain public trust in the planning authority, which of course you are. In conclusion, I certainly fully support the recommendation to put this matter on hold, and I think it is paramount for this Council to seek urgent, independent legal instruction in respect of the legal concerns that I have raised, which to date have remained unanswered by this Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. You've managed to use up all the time that we'd managed to.
It was a little bit rushed, but we got there.
No, thank you very much. And lastly, we've got Helen Broughton, who's going to talk on item 19. Just checking, Helen, you can tell me when you get up here, are you on behalf of the board or for yourself? I just want to make that clear. On the board? Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of the board, Hawesville Hornby Riccarton board, but you're probably aware that councillors don't take part in this. We also have an extra complication in that a staff member is actually a council planner. So we're back to 5, and I've got texts from 4 of those 5. And I think one person does not support a pause. So to be fairly clear, I'm on behalf of the board, but it's a rather small board, as it's turned out. We are number 902 in the submission process. We also lodged a submission on heritage, and we're 1090. We've been very involved in lengthy submissions at the start to the hearings panel, and then we've been called back in 4 areas. We've been called back in on strategic directions. We've been called back in on the commercial chapter. Thirdly, outstanding natural landscape, and that related to Riccarton Bush. And we've been called back in on areas around Lower Riccarton. All the Riccarton residents associations are strongly opposed to this, as is the Greater Hornby Residents Association. And Hallsville Residents Association is a bit more lukewarm, but has actually asked to speak in front of the panel. So every association in our ward has lodged a submission and wants to speak. The reason for the strong concern from Hornby and Riccarton is that we've got 3 large commercial centres in our area, and around each centre you potentially have 6, if not 10 stories. So you've got kind of a wall of, I'd call it concrete, but a wall of buildings, if you like, stretching from Deans Avenue through to Pear Street, through to the main South Road, and in fact Hornby. And this has been a very difficult process. I'm going to talk what I think it's like for lay people. It's been very difficult, a lot lodged submissions in the May period, but haven't come in person. So when you're at the hearings panel, it seems to be planners and in fact lawyers there. Now, I will have missed the odd person who's come and spoke, and some have been very good, but it's a difficult process and I'm finding it difficult myself. And the reasons for that are, I think there's about 3. One is it's more rushed than in 2015. We were involved as a board in 2015 with the plan then. The Section 42 done by council staff, that's done about 6 weeks before you go to a hearing. There's been quite, I'd call it major change. Major change is probably the best word. I'll give you an example. 6 stories have now gone to 10 stories in part of Riccarton. The commercial chapter, you've got the 20-metre height as proposed in May has been moved to 32 metres. And that applies to retail shops which are opposite a large commercial centre. So we've got, in my area, we've got Westfield, which you'll all know. They've asked for it to go to 50, and the council staff are now saying it's 32, but the 32 applies to the shops across the road. So even if you have a high hub, if you like, I don't think we should be putting 32 metres on commercial buildings across the road. The third reason, I think, is that central government has requested this, so there's not a lot of buy-in from local residents. And the fourth reason is the time frame has shifted. I think David mentioned it when we did the submissions, it was till 2050. The time frame seems now to have gone out another 130 years, and that's really unclear how that's happened and why. But we've raised that with the hearings panel as well. So I think the responsible path is to pause. We support the staff recommendations, and you pause to look at the changes made by central government. At the 17th of March meeting, where Plan Change 14 came in front of you, there were 3 councillors who voted against it strongly. There were 10 of you who said we don't like it, but we'll probably have to put it through, or something worse is going to happen. And there were 4 who spoke positively about it. I'm not expecting to change the minds of those 4 people, but I'm asking those 10 to be consistent and give it a pause.
Yep.
It is. Oh,
How we going, bud?
It is only a pause. You could start again in 2 months' time, but you need to be clear, in my view, what the changes are from central government. And I've looked at what they're proposing to do, and they're going to repeal spatial planning in the Natural and Built Environment Act, and they're going to make medium density optional for councils.
Thank
That's
you.
just coming from a media page.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Spot on time. Thank you. Okay, so
thank you.
item 4.